Yeah, first of all, I would like to talk about myself. I'm Kaan Yalçın. I'm 19 years old. This year I will turn 20. It was my first year at Altavelde, and I liked it. I liked the program, I liked the classes I took, I liked the fact that I passed all of them. So it was a good year. And now in this interview, we will talk about how it was my journey with little metaphors, and we will try to make it look like a sports interview because that's my creative idea to create my portfolio.
Tell me more about your first module in PCD.
Yes, that's a very good question. My first answer is it was the most special one for me because it was the first module that I took under in this class and also in the whole school academic year this year. It was a great thing because we got to know each other with my teammates whom I built projects in, not just PCD. We did a PCD workshop together, presented a module for 2 hours, played games, talked about the module itself. We did DBT projects together, digital business technologies. We worked as a team for nearly in 5 assignments, and one of them was like it span across 2 weeks. We created a product and a company using AI tools from scratch to the final product and marketing part of it. So I believe what helped us to do this flawlessly was this module, because in this module we created a team charter, which now I believe you can see on the screen. If you saw it, then we can continue. While creating this team charter, we talked with each other what is more important to us. For example, I said adhering deadlines was very important for me because I don't like when people slack their works or just turn it in at the last minute, so we don't have any time to check in with it. And we added to the team charters. My teammates said what was important for them, and we added them to team charter to create a safe and a productive environment for every one of us. And I really believe that it helped us to understand how this PCD was, how this course was going to look like, and how this school year was going to look like when we were working as a team. And I can, in retrospective, I can say that it worked out pretty well for us because now it's easy for us to work together because we know what we are expecting from each other and we have a binding document. Not legally binding, but we all respect the document we created as a team and we all follow it. What I learned about my teammates was naturally when you're talking with people, you get to know them better. I get to know their stories, I get to know their personalities, and it helped me to understand what they're doing. Rather than what they're doing, I was more focused on why they were doing it. And making that empathy helped me understand their point of view better, and not when they were making a point or like a counterpoint to my idea, I wasn't lashing out on them because I understood why they were saying it, and it helped us all to be more productive and have a better way of studying.
Can you tell us more about your experience about Module 2?
Yes, that is also a very good question. In Module 2, we learned two main things. I will start with the first one. I learned how to do brainstorming better and more effectively because, yeah, everyone thinks that they know how to do brainstorming, but that's the issue. I am rather brilliant in thinking alone, and it's because it's my strong suit. I prefer to work alone, and I'm very good, I think, in a very good way, I believe, when I'm working alone because I create possible scenarios. I act proactively because I try to get ahead, not just react to what happens. But in this module, I learned how to do it in a more efficient way with a group because in a group thinking, you tend to get lost. Somebody says something, somebody adds it, and it gets out of hand pretty quickly. So we learned how to cope with it. We learned how to get everyone's input in the most efficient and effective way as possible, which is very helpful in group projects. And since in international business management, we also learn how to work in groups with different nationalities, different cultures. I think it helped me quite a lot to understand how this process would work and how can I make it better for myself and for also the peoples around me. How can I make them feel safe to share their ideas? How can I feel safe to share my own ideas? And how can it be all tied up together to create a better and more suitable business environment for everyone around me working with me? And the second thing we learned, which came in handy sooner than I expected and I hoped it would be, was the conducting interviews. Like, I had no clue how to conduct an interview because I thought, yeah, it's basic. You just ask questions, somebody answers them. But I learned that it was not like that. I learned which questions should I ask to get the answers that I want. It's more like prompting when you're working with artificial intelligence. You have to nod the person you are interviewing gently to the direction you want your answers to be. Because we have to keep in mind that even though they have titles, they are very successful peoples, in the end they're peoples just like all of us. So they can't read our minds, so we have to nod them to the direction we want them to go. So it was very beneficial for me because we had MLB, Management and Leadership in Business, in the second sprint, which I believe was the hardest course we took up until this point. And we did something called work observation. In this work observation, we had to tail a manager for 8 hours or something close to that. And we had to learn and observe how they were doing their job, how to be a manager, what are their daily tasks, how do they manage these daily tasks. And during that work observation, we also had to ask questions to them to conduct an interview. And I had 10 questions to ask, and thanks to this module, I knew the questions I should ask. And depending on the answers that I got, I added some things to the question to make it more clear which answer I was looking for, and they gave me. And it worked, because the manager gave me the answers that I wanted. Not exactly the things that I wanted to hear, but he gave the answers in the way that I wanted those to be. And here, because it's on my hand that I can show it, this is the work observation report that we filled in. As you can see, the manager was here. And you will see my work observation reflection below this video's link. I will ask broadcasters to put it there, but I'm not sure. I'm in my rookie year, so they can disregard whatever I want, but I'm sure they won't do it. I will force them if it's necessary, yeah.
How was Module 3?
I believe Module 3 was the hardest module we've ever taken because the magnitude and the volume of this module was a lot to digest for me. Even just putting the deliverables needed for this module was pretty hard for me. I already had them, like for example, such as I had to have notes, which I had, and I will show in just a mere seconds. I had to have a plan. I have a weekly plan, but I don't use it that often or that strictly because I am good with time management. I can understand why it was important because some people really do have problems with it. I never had problems with managing my own time, so I never believed that I actually needed it, but yeah, it helped me in some ways. Yeah, sorry for that noise. Still a rookie home, so yeah. You're just like people's, like everyone. It was hard to digest, but let's start with the notes, summarizing one chapter of coursework we were studying. I chose this because it looked prettier than any of it. It's the summary of chapter 12 of Management and Leadership in Business. You can see this is how I summarize it. This is for subtopics. Black, blue is for normal writing, and red is for the important parts. This is another continue of the same chapter. And yes, this is the last part of that chapter. For my weekly planning, I believe it should be on the screen now. Yes, and yeah, I try to work with it, but since my work requires me to be on call more than I would allow it to be, so that's the reason why I sometimes have to work even though I wasn't intending to work on that hours. Other than that, it was pretty much the same with the planning I did. I studied, I had time for myself. I've come to school, I've spent some time coming to school because I'm living in Brussels. Coming to Ghent takes like 1.5 hours, sometimes 140 minutes, depending on the time and day. But I worked with it, and for the exam week planning, it might seem like I'm cheapening out or didn't create it one, but I don't change my schedule on exam weeks. I study like usual. I do what I need to do in the usual, because it makes me feel calm. It makes me feel like it's just an ordinary week. I don't have to stress for anything. I don't have to change for anything because I know that I prepared well during the sprint. So I'm not studying to learn in the exam week. I'm just studying to make what I learned sharper and remember it better. And because of that, I don't change my schedule on exam weeks. I've tried it last year. It made me feel very stressed and overwhelmed. Plus, I can study more than I do now. Otherwise, I tend to lose my motivation. I tend to lose my concentration. So it's better like this. That's the reason why I don't have a special exam week planning like maybe the others do. Because I think it's better for me. And for the last part of it, I'm going to talk about my mock exam experience with the banking and finance. For banking and finance, we took a mock exam 2 weeks before the exam itself, because we took the mock exam. After the week after that, we had a time off because every class was finished. We studied. I studied. I don't know what anyone else did. So what I learned from that mock exam was I've seen how the questions were going to be like in the exam. I've learned how everything was going to be, how difficult they were going to be, and what would the type of the questions be. Like how much emphasis does a lecturer put on, let's say, the calculations part of the banking and finance and theory part. And based on that, I was able to create new mock exams with the same questions, not the same exact questions, but the questions with the same difficulty and same distribution. Like if it was 2 in the 20 question exam, it would be 4 in a 40 question exam. So I was able to create more mock exams for myself, which helped me prepare. And mock exams teach me 2 things: how the exam was going to be and how can I manage it. So I put more emphasis on the topics that teacher was putting more emphasis, which in return helped me because I passed banking and finance with 18, which means I got 36 questions right in a 40 question exam. So I think it went pretty well for me, and I'm grateful to have mock exams because they help me. They no need to be stressed. You just come there, learn, and see what you learned and what you can do better. So yeah, it helped me in more ways than I could have imagined.
Can you tell us more about your experience about Module 2?
Yes, it might be interesting to hear about Module 4. It wasn't a teaching module. It was more like a peer-to-peer interaction. We gathered around a circle where we talked about our experience regarding the Sprint 1 and our exams, how they were, how we studied for them. and everyone contributed. Everyone talked about their own experience. For some people it was good, for some people it wasn't what they expected or what they hoped. But at the end, we gave each other study tips, how to manage with the exam stress while studying for the exams or during the exams. In that instance, it didn't help me that much because I believe the way you're studying and the way you're dealing with the stress is something personal, while something may work for you and it may backfire or not work for anyone else. But what helped me quite a lot was the learning questions, because everyone had one learning question and everyone answered them, and in the end, with the help of our study coach, we tried to find a better answer for everyone present there. In one instance it helped me quite a lot because someone had a question where I've never even thought it would be something important. I've never thought about it, but when I saw the question, I knew that I needed to know the answer to study better, to get better results. So yeah, it helped me quite a lot in that instance. Of course, our study coach was present. He guided us through the whole session, and he sometimes rephrased our questions to make it more understandable for people to answer. And the deliverable for that part was our supervision report, which is here, and it will be accessible through the links below this video. But to summarize it, I talked about which classes I took, how was my experience with the classes I took, and the modular system, which is our system different from traditional semester system, how the other students reacted, if it influenced me or not, what helped me grow more as a person, and what helped me progress in my academic studies. Did it went well for me? If did, what went well? And what were the negative effects on the sprint one? And what can I change, or what I want to change in the upcoming sprints, and how I can do it with the maybe help of who or what. And in the end, we were asked to give advice to people who would start studying in the higher education, which I did, and all of it will be visible on the report you are going to read. And maybe, if the courtesy of the house, maybe we can add it to the screen after this part if possible, so you can stop it and read it, or maybe like an audio part can be added. I will try to see what I can convince them to do. Yeah, thanks.
What can you tell us about Module 5?
Yes, most certainly we can talk about my experience in the Module 5. That was an interesting module because we learned two main things. One of them was to list our objectives, like A objectives and B objectives, where A objectives were more of like a long-term thing, which were more important, and B objectives were like the short-term things we were planning to do. And we learned how to formulate these objectives, especially the A ones, in a way called SMART way. The SMART way make sure that you include every specific detail you need to add, such as the steps you are going to take, and maybe if you know it or if you have any ideas how you may take those steps in order to reach that goal. So it basically, you take a one goal, and when you formulate it in SMART way, it becomes like 5 or 10 goals depending on the size of the original goal you want to achieve. It's a good thing because otherwise it's too vague. For example, one of my objectives were to take charge of the company that I will be doing it. My father is running the company now, and I want to take charge of it. Well, that's the whole reason why I'm studying IBM. And in order to do that, if it stays like that, let's say taking charge of the company, I don't know when it's going to happen. It may happen in 10 years, it may happen in 15 years, and I don't exactly know how much progress I would make towards that goal if I didn't formulate it in smart way. And I formulated in smart way. I said I want to manage my own division in the company in 2 years' time. If I'm free from my father's supervision, that means I am now capable of doing it. And that also adds it. Like if I achieve these 2 steps, that's a progress towards the achieving the goal. So it helped me quite a lot, because otherwise I would be too overwhelmed with the magnitude of my own goals. Yes, I set them. I know I can achieve them at a point, but I don't know when it's going to happen, or I don't know how to keep track of if it happened or not. So it helped me quite a lot. We also made a sprint planning, a sprint week planning actually. My weekly planner should be on the screen now, as you can see, and there are explanations on the right side, and my plan for the week is on the left. And now you should see my to-do list in the screen. I believe it appeared on the screen now. It says starting gym, I did it. Finishing the book I'm reading, I did it and moved on to another book. Not breaking the chain and coming to the school, unfortunately I did this also. Doing a comprehensive recap of what I've done in Sprint 2, I've also done it. And getting gifts from my parents and brothers. It was before Christmas, so yeah, I had to do it. And I also did it. So making this list actually helped me, because if I didn't do it, I would probably forget something, like getting the gifts or doing a comprehensive recap. I would remember it at the last minute and it wouldn't be comprehensive, it would be just slacking the job. So yes, planning and how we can incorporate those plannings into our daily lives was taught on this module, and I believe it helped me quite a lot as a person. And for the A and B objectives and the smart formulation way, I believe it helped me on the more career development side of our PCD class as a whole. For the planning parts, I think doing Excel chart helps quite a lot, because it makes it easier to keep track of my time. And when I'm looking back to see what I devoted my time to, it was quite easy for me to see, oh, I've studied, I did this, I did that. And also when I'm making promises to people, oh yes, we can go out on Wednesday, or we can go out on Friday, it's easier to have an Excel chart, so that way down I can see if I'm free or not, because otherwise it would be like I would give up on something. I wouldn't want to give up on my friends, but I wouldn't also want to give up on my study time, so it's better this way. Thank you for asking.
How about Module 4?
Yes, we can continue with the Module 6. It was a great learning opportunity, as always, for me. I learned a great deal of things. And to break it down, the main points of this module was making a SWOT analysis for myself, self-regulated learning skills that we mastered and we want to master, and making a reflection using the Cortagan method. So when we start with the SWOT analysis, I believe you should be seeing it on the screen now. So if you don't, you probably will, but I still want to say it. My strengths are, as I wrote down, confidence, passion, knowledge, and being realistic. I'm confident in my abilities and in my personality. I have passion for things that I do. Not all of them. Some things I do it because I have to, but if I have passion about it, I would go great miles for it. So yeah, I think it's a strength. Knowledge, I read a lot, I research a lot, so I know a great deal of things about so many things like history, philosophy, psychology, literature, politics, a lot of things, like even unnecessary details about so many things. I even know about like somewhat of a pharmaceutical way of opioids and the other things like that didn't have a way and a place in popular culture. And I'm realistic. Like I know my limits, I know the limits of peoples that I'm around, I know the limits of the things that I am around, and I act on it. I know how the world works. At least I have an idea about it. even though I don't like it, even though I don't like how it's going in this world, I respect it because that's how the reality is, so I have to act on it. My weaknesses are I'm pessimistic, yes, that's also a fact, and I think it's usually combined with being realistic. And if you have a like a character like me who is usually feels a little blue and down, and if he's realistic, he tends to be a little pessimistic. Like if there's a good thing and bad thing, I would first see the bad thing on it, and I think it's a weakness because it demoralizes you pretty quickly in pretty much anything you do in this life, whether it's personal, whether it's business, whether it's studying. It has its way. Communication, yeah, I also don't like to communicate a lot, and I don't respond to communication that much, so I think it's a weakness. And general disinterest, as I wrote. When I wrote this thought, I was more in a bad place than I am right now, but I still have a general disinterest in so many things. Like most of the things don't even grab my interest to act on them, or even if I know that it would be beneficial for me because I don't have an interest on it, I don't have a passion, hence if I don't have passion I wouldn't act on it, so it's kind of like a bad habit that I need to break. Opportunities, as I wrote, can thrive in international settings, as I wrote, because I have a skill for empathy and I can empathize with people. I can see why they're doing certain things, I can analyze them, and I think it came in pretty handy when I was doing this international business management course, and I think it will be very helpful for me in the future too. Can benefit from practice, I wrote it as opportunity because I'm studying in a University of Applied Sciences, and Artaveldo offers us pretty unique opportunities with real life business experiences such as work observation in MLB, where we get to spend a time in a corporate setting with a manager, tailing them, observing them. I think it's an opportunity for me. Perform better with trust, as I wrote. My teammates are trusting me when we are doing a project. My teachers trust me when I'm doing something, and that both motivates me as a person, and when I'm trusted and kind of left doing my own thing, I tend to do better. So that's the reason why I think that I will benefit from it. And as threats, one fail can break system, as I wrote, and it is unfortunately true. Like even if a slightest thing happens in my life, that can have its impact on things. It might be listed as weakness, but since I don't control what's happening, and right now I don't have any control over the actions that I would took in that case, so I think it's a threat for me. Problems with structure, that's written as threat because I don't do well with a lot of structured things such as education, corporate life, etc. I need to bend the rules a bit to fit in, and I don't get to do it with the school, so I think it's a threat for me. Yes, I've been able to keep it good, but I don't know how long it can last, so yeah. And can't keep up with morning classes, as I wrote. The reason why I wrote this as a threat is sometimes I have to go to port to take care of business for my father, and it can be pretty late when I come home, like 3 a.m. 3:30, and I have to take a shower, I have to sleep, and to come to my morning class I have to wake up at 6:30, so that leaves me with 2.5 hours of sleep, and that is an actually problem for me. But thanks for these exercises, I identified all of my strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. I was able to play onto my strengths and do something to change my weaknesses, to make them better. I was able to see the threats that I would face clearly and the opportunities I might exploit, so it was a pretty good exercise. And self-regulated learning skills, as I said, I already mastered setting goals and establishing the steps to achieve those goals. Especially thanks to learning about the smart way, it was easier for me. Because when I saw that I was making progress, I started to work more to make more progress. It was more like a reward system for myself. As I wrote down, I applied it by creating targets for myself and decide on my course on how to achieve them and following the roadmap I drew for myself. And the not so pretty part is I need to improve my skill of assessing my performances because I'm naturally overconfident in my own abilities, which in return causes me to overestimate what I can do. That's a big problem for me because if you leave me alone, like 10 or 15 minutes, I can even think that I might move the Earth from its orbit. That's a silly thing to say, but yeah, sometimes I feel like that. Sometimes I feel like I can do anything I want. And that's not true. That's not realistic. But it happens. And I'm sorry it's going to take a little more time, but final reflection that I did with Cortigan method consists of 5 phases, and I need to read it because it would make me feel better. Phase 1. What actually happened I started a new year in a new university. I had to work hard to pass my required courses to graduate from school. I actually studied and passed everything so far with okay grades, I think. Outcome was I was happy and successful academically. Phase 2. What I saw was if you study enough and care enough about your classes, you can pass. After seeing that, I studied well, and thanks to that, I passed. I thought that was something I should have done for my entire academic life, but will do it for future definitely. I felt good, especially after getting my results and seeing I passed with flying grades. Phase 3. It means to me that I need to study hard and good to keep my success in future. Positive discoveries, I found out that if you study, you can pass. This process involved paying attention and working hard. Phase 4. I would try to make studying more fun and not something I dread about. Making studying fun would benefit me that I can study more, but disadvantages, it might be too unserious. I will remember that when I studied, I passed. Phase 5. I want to graduate and get my diploma in the 3 year span. I should watch out for distractions and temptations that tells me I can pass without studying. I don't enjoy new things as much as others do, so nothing I want to try out. This was my final reflection using the Cortigan method, which was pretty helpful for me because I was able to see what I've done in this year with just 5 phases, what went well, what could have been changed, and sometimes even if you don't see anything, it's better to write something you feel because now it's out of your conscious and you feel more relieved. You have more space for new experiences you might have or other things such as that. So I think what I've learned from using Cortagan method was I was able to clearly assess the things that I was doing, how they had impact on me, how it might be better for me to reflect on them, and I certainly think that was one of the most valuable things I've learned in PCD. Thank you for asking about my module 6. As you can see, it's probably the most I talk about the module, but it needed to be because the volume of the things we covered was same as I think the module 3, but these were more important and needed to be talked about more, so it took a little bit of time. Sorry for the people who are actually watching this interview.
Can we get your idea on Module 9?
Thank you for your question. Now I would like to talk about Module 9, which was the final PCD module for this year. After that, we will have COIL project and we have to finish our portfolio. We have to write a growth story and defend our portfolio orally. And for that instance, it was pretty special because it's the end module of the class that lasts for 1 year, and that is the only class we have that lasts 1 year. I learned a lot of new things while the duration of this class, so I liked it. And it's sad to see this ending, but everything's gotta end at some point. So Module 9, in Module 9, we created an ideal job ad. For me, I think you should see it on the screen now. it basically, the assignment was basically that you have to come up with a ideal job ad for yourself. And when I saw when I first saw it, I said, yeah, well, I'm not the one who's going to write job ads, so it's not that important for me to know. But when I started doing it, I understood the main reason why we were doing this thing, because when I was writing it for to best suit me, I saw what qualities do I bring to the table when applying for a job, and in what kind of a job environment, in what kind of an office setting I would love to work. So it was good for me. I saw that what I valued most in choosing a job for myself. And we also had to say why we thought that it was best for us. And I also did that. For the second assignment, it was a quick test about our talents. I think there were 39 talents, but we had to choose 5. Of course, I had more than 5. I believe you see my results now. As you can see from them, there were more than 5 talents that I was eligible to choose. So when I was narrowing it down, I found that why and what I valued most about myself and my talents, which one of them was more beloved by me, in which talents did I put more emphasis on. And from the results, you saw my 5 selected ones, but I'm going to say them again: selective star, intuitive thinker, structure finder, boundary pusher, belief sector. I believe these 5 are the ones that I care about most in the 5 things board. And based on those, we created a mood board, and it's visible on the screen now. So when I was taking the quick test results, I again learned some more things about my character. It's not about you learn it, rather it's a discovery, because you never thought about it. But when you see something, you start thinking about it, and that made me see what the different aspects of my character, and which aspects of my character I put more emphasis on, which I cared more. And while doing the mood board, it was somewhat of a visual representation of my selected talents. So it was again a good way to see what it actually comes across to me, not as something I think internally, but rather it's an external visual thing. So it was somewhat of an entertaining thing to do, and also it was a very educational thing. I learned a great deal of things about myself. And to finish this whole interview, we've covered pretty much every module of PCD. I've covered every deliverable for this portfolio project. It's a thing that is both going to be submitted as Word document and also like this interview. All of it, it's probably going to be like 35 to 40 minutes. It's going to be including all of the deliverables. And for the conclusion, I just have to include final reflection did with the Cortagan method, and I would like to read it, but you will see it on the screen now for the proof of deliverable, and I'm going to read it now. The actual phase 1. The actual situation is I am currently at the 3rd sprint and on my way to finishing IBM first year and past the halfway point for that. My responsibility was to keep my head down and study to get grades as good as possible, and which was I did. I studied well organized and hard enough to get satisfying grades that helped me towards my goal of finishing IBM. Results of my action was helping me to pass all my first semester courses and currently doing the same with upcoming courses. Phase 2. I saw how helpful pursuing an IBM degree will be for my future to learn delicacies of business management and helping my career as ship owner. I studied hard to learn everything that I think will be important in the future. I thought that doing this now is boring and somewhat repetitive, but it is an investment for my future, so I must do it. I felt somewhat liberated because I have something to do, which every task I accomplish gives me a dopamine boost. Phase 3. It means to me now that I'm enjoying my life and especially my studies, and the reason why is I'm taking a step towards being successful by studying. My positive discovery can seem funny, but up until this point in my life, I've never studied before, and last year I paid the price for it. But this year, I learned that when you study, you pass no matter how hard the subject is. Phase 4. I will use my discovery to motivate myself to study because sometimes I just don't want to, and in those times, I believe what I discovered will help me. Advantage of this is its extra motivation, and honestly speaking, I don't see any disadvantage about it. I will always remember my discovery and how helpful it was for me. And the last part, phase 5, I want to be a successful ship owner, and I'm also studying for that too by learning minute details, which is hard to learn, but using the motivation I get from my positive discovery to pull myself through it. I should watch out for demotivators around me that might cause distraction and make studying for my future harder for me. I would like to try out visiting other countries. I don't enjoy traveling that much, but I think seeing places other than the ones that enchanted me, just for the sake of seeing new places, would be better. And this is the conclusion. I've actually enjoyed my spell in PCD, and even if it was too time consuming and somewhat hard, I actually enjoyed doing this portfolio because it gave me a chance to recap everything I did for PCD. And this is the last part. I'm filming for it. After that, I'm going to put this to the video. I will put the questions in the video and it's going to be done. So thank you so much for watching me and doing this interview with me, asking me about my first year. And I believe the result will be good, but yeah, we will see. But no matter the result is, I've learned a lot of things while doing this. I've recapped the things that I've learned and I actually enjoyed it. So thank you so much for being here with me in this journey, and I wish you all the good luck.